Today, we're gonna make coffee cake, but listen up for a second. Things are gonna be a little bit different than usual. And that's because we're actually gonna use coffee in it. Now, I know that sounds funny, but most of the time, coffee cake doesn't actually have any coffee in it. I mean, if you don't believe me, check out any recipe online. Coffee cake is more of a cake that's supposed to be eaten when you're actually having a cup of coffee. The idea behind it is more of this morning confection that you'd eat as you're sitting there relaxing and reading the newspaper, looking out into the open world. But I figured it'd probably taste so much better with coffee, right? Why not pack a ton of coffee in there? But as always, we couldn't just make any normal cooking video. That's not what we're here to do. I mean, sure, there's a time and a place, but I thought, how can we think outside the box? And I eventually decided that we were going to overcompensate here. And by that, I mean, we're gonna put 15 pounds of coffee into a coffee cake. Now, just one quick second before I jump in, please, if you're here a lot and love these videos, make sure to toss a like on the video. And now, without further ado, we're gonna need a lot of coffee. Now, I've already started filling up this massive bin with coffee here, but really, we need a lot of beans to make this happen. The idea behind this is that I'm gonna fill this entire thing up and then eventually reduce all of this coffee down to a tiny concentrated amount. But for now, we need to keep filling it up because we're not even close to there yet. What you're looking at right here is gonna be more coffee than you've probably ever seen. I think just one more bag and we're gonna be pretty good. Now, this right here is a lot of coffee. And these are some top quality beans right here. You remember those little ball pits when you were a kid where you could go in and kind of climb around in there and get lost in the balls? This sort of reminds me of that. Actually, cut the cameras for a second. Oh my God. Now, this right here is a lot of beans. So I don't think I can use my normal coffee grinder to get these things going. I think we need a blender. I'm gonna go ahead and add all of that coffee to my blender. I mean, right now is really where I wish I had some sort of funnel because this isn't the easiest job in the world right here. But the goal is gonna be to get this coffee all at once ground into the finest powder we possibly can. Basically, in order to extract as much flavor here as possible. At this point, we add on our lid and we grind it up. And once we're finished grinding and it looks like a beautiful, perfect powder, we'll take this off, pour this back into our bowl, and make a large mess in the process. As you can see at this point, we have a beautifully fine powder. And now we're ready to make some coffee. Now, the process of brewing my coffee is gonna take quite a while because I always do it in really small batches in one of these tiny little mocha pots. And for this, I wanna keep it that way. To start, I'm gonna add a little bit of filtered water to the bottom of my pot here. Then at this point, I'll place in this piece, then come over with my first little batch of coffee and fill it up to the very brim, then making sure to pack it down as much as possible for maximum flavor. This is one of those things that you have to make perfect. So I'll finish by pressing it down with my bench scraper and then scraping off that top layer, leaving my perfect amount of coffee in here. I'll screw on the lid and I'm ready to cook. Now, unfortunately, our normal cooktop here doesn't exactly go all the way across, so we've improvised with 2 knives. Hopefully that works. First, let's crank on that heat and place down our little pot. Once this is all set, we're gonna cook it over low heat and the water in the bottom is gonna boil and essentially steam and bubble up all the way through to come out of this little spout on the top where we'll get our coffee to spill down in the top section. So let's wait a few moments. At this point, you can see the coffee spouting out of the top here. And normally it'd be a lot more intense, but I've opened it up for you to be able to see it. All that pressure is built up and is just pushing that coffee out of the top here, giving us this amazingly delicious coffee spurting out of the top. Perfect. Once we have our coffee, we're gonna go ahead and pour that into our glass pot here because I wanna fill up this entire pot with coffee. It's gonna be a long day. Once we finish that first round, I'm gonna fill this up yet again with our coffee. My estimates say this is gonna take us between an hour and an hour and a half. The dedication is real, everybody. All right, it really excites me to say that we're going in with our last little bit of coffee here. And yes, it took us a while, but these are the fruits of our labor right here. And if you haven't put 2 and 2 together yet, we're now gonna boil this all the way down to end up with just a tiny little amount of coffee that will go into a super concentrated, highly caffeinated coffee cake. At this point in time, I'm gonna go take a little nap while we let this boil all the way off. This basically means we're letting off as much of the water here as possible, and it's gonna ultimately give us this really concentrated, potent coffee syrup. This in turn will go into our coffee cake to give us that true coffee cake flavor that I've always wanted to experience. Now, I wasn't kidding. We really just did reduce this all the way down to next to nothing. What you're looking at right there is probably equivalent to maybe 20-25 cups of coffee. So again, this coffee cake is gonna be extraordinarily potent. But now that we've reduced our coffee from here all the way down to here, I'm gonna turn off the heat and then very carefully pour out that coffee because we don't wanna waste a darn thing. This right here is some very hard-earned coffee concentrate, so let's put it to good use. Now finally, to assemble our coffee cake, we're gonna go in with 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. If it doesn't all come out, give it a little spank. One second, let me grab the salt. Okay. What are you doing? Did you see this sugar? What are you doing? You're fired. What are you doing? All right, everybody, I've just fired the cameraman, so now I'm gonna be trying to do these videos myself. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing here. He knocked down the baking soda and the flour all over my floor this time, so it really isn't a joke anymore. I apologize, but I'm gonna be doing a POV type style now, and we'll see how that goes. Now we're gonna go in with 2 cups of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and then 1.5 teaspoons baking soda, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and last but not least, a little pinch of salt. I'm gonna be doing this whole thing by hand, so at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and whisk this up to get it evenly combined. You'll actually find a lot of coffee cake recipes that have you pulse this in a food processor. I'll be the first to tell you that frankly, I don't really think it matters all that much, but you can definitely do it that way if you want. You can also do it in a stand mixer as well. So really, it doesn't matter. And now at this point, we're gonna add it all to our stand mixer alongside 4 entire sticks of softened butter. I know that sounds like a lot, and it is, but butter makes everything delicious. At this point, we're gonna pulse it up until small little clumps begin to form, but where there are still tiny little clumps of butter that remain. At this point, with the mixer still running slowly, one by one, we're gonna crack in 4 whole eggs. Really trying to let those fully incorporate before we do the next one. I'm using about medium-sized eggs for this. And at this point in time, it's gonna start to smell amazing. And now while this rests for just a moment, we're gonna go in with 2/3 cup of sour cream, using that same bowl that we had our butter in to waste a few less dishes. And then slowly whisking, we'll add about 1/4 cup of that really concentrated coffee, mixing it evenly into this sour cream to make coffee sour cream. This right here is where we supercharge that coffee flavor, whisking until we get this sort of consistency. At this point, let's add in our sour cream and coffee mixture, along with about 1 tablespoon of our vanilla bean paste, which I prefer over vanilla extract any day, and let this mix again. Once we're all set, we'll lift this up and our batter is ready to go. Because of how much butter is in there, it almost looks like frosting. Now, of course, we have to make our crumble, but first I want to show you a really cool thing. You ever run out of brown sugar when you're baking, or you just need brown sugar, whether it's dark brown sugar or light brown sugar for something? I got you covered. Most people don't know that brown sugar is literally just regular sugar with a tiny bit of molasses in there, which is burnt sugar. So brown sugar is also just sugar, as is molasses, of course. It's just sugar in different forms. Now, funnily enough, I actually do have brown sugar in my cupboard, but I figured it'd be fun to teach you how to make your own brown sugar. Very simply, you just need to drizzle a little bit of molasses into that sugar there, usually just a teaspoon or 2, and mix that around until your sugar begins to clump together and turn a little bit more brown. It should start to get almost a little bit wet. And you can really easily dictate whether you get dark or light brown sugar based on how much molasses you put in there. Now, as you can see, after just a little bit of stirring, I have made what looks to be more on the dark side of brown sugar. As you can see, it has all those same properties, clumps together just a little bit, and that's all we need. So now for my crumble, I'm gonna go in with about 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, a nice little sprinkle of our cinnamon again, and at this point, we're gonna let our mixer slowly run while drizzling in about 1 cup of melted butter. Our aim here being to get as many clumps as we possibly can get, which will be nicely crumbled onto the top of our coffee cake before we bake it. My suggestion would be to slowly drizzle in that butter and watch it as it clumps together. I haven't used all of my butter, but it looks to me here like I have the perfect consistency of clumps that I'm looking for. So I'm actually gonna turn off my mixer at this point and prepare to assemble. Now finally, we're ready to bake. First, I'm gonna grease the bottom of my pan here, making sure that nothing's gonna stick. At this point, in we go with our beautiful coffee cake mixture. It's light, it's fluffy, and it's going to blow your mind. It's also got the best coffee flavor you could possibly imagine. Once we've evenly spread this out in our baking container here, knowing that it's gonna rise up a little bit as it cooks, we're gonna take all of our amazing crumbs and sprinkle those evenly across the top of our coffee cake. I, for one, am a massive fan of coffee cake. And to tell you the truth, I've never made it myself at home before. So this is rather exciting. Now, just like one of those Nature Valley bars, I want those crumbs to fall all over the place when we take this thing out of the oven. I really want to crumb it up. So once they're nearly overflowing from our baking dish here, I'm gonna go ahead and toss this in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 minutes. So I'm gonna keep a close eye on it towards the end because we don't want to let all this hard work go to waste. Once you can cleanly put in a toothpick or a knife, this bad boy is ready to go. After quite some time, that beautiful thing should be done. And as you can see, we made a little bit of a mess in our oven, but the result is gorgeous. At this point, our coffee cake is complete. And yeah, come on. I know it looks kind of like a muffin, but you know what? I'm gonna be the first to tell you that this is the best way you can have any sort of baked good like this. And hear me out. If you look really closely, you not only have a really moist coffee cake on the inside, you actually have some sort of coffee cake butter brickle cookie on the edges, which I'll break a little piece off of here and taste. The best way I can describe it to you is that it's one of the best cookies you'll ever have. Assuming you like crunchy, crispy cookies. Now, when it comes to our coffee cake, it's clearly a distinct looking cake compared to what you might normally see. First of all, I go heavy on the crumble, and that is absolutely by design. To me, the crumble's got this really unique texture that can kind of mix with that softer, fluffier interior of the actual coffee cake to make for a fantastic overall experience. Now, I really can't stop eating this cookie. I will say that this coffee cake isn't really one that we can take so easily out of this container here. It's better to actually cut this out of here unless you want to make a terrible mess of your entire kitchen. So let's try to take a little slice out of this. You know what? I said that and then I thought about it again. I want to try to take it out, so let's just do it. I've taken some of my crumble separately aside in a bowl right now so that I can try to flip this thing over into my hand. So here goes nothing. Whoo! Cut the cams, cut the cams. Okay. Oh my God, this could be a pillow. Strangely enough, it seems that we have some sort of sinkhole on our bread here. Well, everybody, things have gone here quickly from bad to worse. After I took my first slice, it somehow caved down in an even more unique looking way where I don't even at this point really know what to say. So here's what I will say. I apologize to all the kids watching. One thing I will say I love about this coffee cake is just how it turned out. What we almost have here is this really moist interior because I took it out a few minutes early. But then here you have this really crispy, crackly texture on the outside. And then of course, all the crumbs you could possibly imagine. So this right here is the coffee cake of the century that combines every single element that you want in a good food. Like I said, right here is our final coffee cake, and I love the way that it turned out. Now, yes, if you want to, you can pour a little bit less batter than I actually did in there, and that might save your oven from a little bit of a mess, but you're also not gonna have this crust here, which frankly, I love. I'm not sure if you know the story of the lava cake, but just like the lava cake, I'm gonna call this a happy accident. Because just like we have a slightly softer interior, we also have that crusty burnt exterior, and I like both of those. Now, first things first, I wanna smell this. One of the first things it reminds me of, absolutely without a question, is pumpkin bread. To me, pumpkin bread is one of my favorites because it's always so moist and soft and delicious. In fact, I shove so much pumpkin bread in my mouth during the holidays that I start choking on it most of the time. I'm just obsessed with it. And this to me has that same moist consistency there. I can see it and I can smell it. Now, why don't we just take a bite? I probably just ate an entire cup of coffee worth of coffee cake, but it was fantastic. It's buttery. I mean, super buttery because of how much butter we put in there. Between you and me, if you want to put a little bit less butter in there, you should. You don't have to put 4 sticks of butter, but the results speak for themselves. Now, let's eat a bite of the crust. That might be even better. This whole thing is buttery, has just a slight coffee flavor despite how much we actually put in there, but it was exactly what we were going for. It's moist, it's got texture, it's got crunch, it's got chew, it's got everything you could possibly want in a cake. And just like my cake, it's irresistible. And one last little thing before I go. For those of you that don't know, this is my cute little hamster Pesto. He's really tired right now because I just woke him up from a deep sleep. But if you won't take it from me, at least take this from Pesto. All he asks is that everyone toss a quick like on this video. It helps me and more importantly, Pesto a lot. And if you can't say yes to me, how can you not say yes to this cute little face? Now, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like Pesto and I asked you in the beginning, please don't forget to like it, especially if you watched all the way through. I mean, come on, but seriously, we'd really appreciate it. And also, if you're not subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe. We are growing like mad right now, and the family is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I feel like every day I wake up right now, we've gained another couple 10,000 subscribers. It's crazy, but that's all thanks to you, and I'm glad that you're here. Last thing, hit the notifications icon if you haven't, because that'll make sure you never miss a video. Well, I'm probably gonna have way too much caffeine right now and have a ridiculous amount of energy, so probably not gonna get all that much sleep tonight. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.